The first entrepreneurial venture, I did very well, but the entrepreneurial venture didn't do well. The second time the venture did well, I didn't do well. I was kind of borderline burnt out, working 17 hours a day. Because 7 days a week, there's no off. An innovation organization can't run on competition. If both of us merely compete and say, come on, we both have to innovate, the more you compete, the more you fail because you're putting pressure on your own brain. Innovation comes when you're in a relatively more free space, you have certain head space, you're able to use it, you've got an environment where failure is not rewarded, but certain structured failures, etc. Okay, fine, the company is willing to live with it. That's a different mindset altogether. If you try to bring a culture of an innovative GCC to a cost, that's a guaranteed recipe for destruction because you don't need to innovate, you need to duplicate. A cost organization is repeat, duplicate. An innovation organization is innovate, don't duplicate, the opposite. The leadership is different. So if you want to do, I don't think in the same organization you can have both, you can have certain sections and all that. The right thing is mindset, your own mindset and what you think you stand for.
Welcome to GCC World's podcast called Unplugged, where we speak to GCC leaders who are shaping the ecosystem in India. And today I have with me Raja Jamalamadaka, Managing Director, Roche Digital Center of Excellence, India. Raja is a seasoned technology leader with over 25 years of experience spanning services, products, and captive centers of excellence. He's a two-time entrepreneur and a recognized global voice on leadership, innovation, and transformation. Thank you, Raja, for joining us. A pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
So, your career,
Mhm.
spans 3 decades across services, products, GCCs, and entrepreneurship. Tell us, the early influences in your career, in your life, and how you found your way into the world of, innovation centers, capability centers, and digital transformation.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question because normally people would expect a fairly standard structured path. Oh, I became a software engineer, then I become a senior, then I
Right.
became this. It's anything but scripted.
Hmm.
It's that's not how it is. I started off immediately after graduating, coincidentally from engineering college Pune, COEP as it's called, um, to become a mechanical engineer because back in the day, computers was just starting off and nobody knew where it would go. So I did this mechanical engineering. That was the big industry at that time. And by the time I completed my fourth year of engineering, computers had completely taken over,
Okay.
and most of the jobs were there. So I started my job in a technology organization. Back at that time, MBA was like this big thing and all. So I, like most of the ambitious people at that time, either they went for GRE or I went for MBA, and I was this MBA guy. And then I tried the first year, I couldn't make it, and I was hell bent on only the IIMs. I would not want to do anywhere else. The first year I couldn't make it, and then second year I was the country topper, one of the country toppers. I made it to all of the IIMs for the MBA program. But by that time, I had 2 years experience. I was so neck deep into technology,
Hmm.
and suddenly, you don't plan for it, but it happens. So had planned for management.
Hmm.
I then said, maybe I'm not interested in it.
Hmm.
I didn't plan for technology. I planned for mechanical engineering. In 2 years, I was so interested.
Hmm.
I said, I'm going to quit my seat.
Hmm.
So I quit my seat at the MBA in the MBA program at the IIMs and became a technology entrepreneur. It was so surprising.
Hmm.
I got a call from one of the Indian institutes. Hey, all okay. We're not heard back. I said,
Right.
We've given you a seat. So I got into entrepreneurship. That was how it got into entrepreneurship. Not planned.
Hmm.
I liked it. We had some entrepreneurs. They had some perspectives. I got into that. That done, the venture didn't do super well. It got absorbed. We sold it to a few things. That led to a job.
Hmm.
And then I got into services because once the product reaches its end, you get into services. I sold a lot of services to lots of companies. So when you see these big service providers and we talk about service providers versus GCCs,
Right.
I never see it as versus. I was on that side
Right. Right.
for quite some years. The entrepreneurial bug bit me again. That time I was in another product in the social media space.
Okay.
That this time the first entrepreneurial venture, I did very well, but the entrepreneurial venture didn't do well. The second time the venture did well, I didn't do well. I was kind of borderline burnt out, working 17 hours a day. If it's 7 days a week, there's no off, and also that's how it was. So that's when I went to the US, did some studies, and then became a head on the American side. That time there was no word called GCC, GIC.
Right.
Only a captive word in some shape or form. We didn't have all these GCC councils. I was the head on that side, then came to India and became the head. I started off as director of technology, eventually became the head. By when GIC term was coined first time, I had
And
started
this
it
we are
in
talking
India
about which year?
15 years ago, 2011, and GIC was around that time. A little before that, I was in the US actually. Then I came to India, and then that time, I don't think any sensible person would join GIC.
Yeah.
The thought was, look, there's captive units, back office cost, and indeed, cost was the big play. I continued. We then did well in that particular organization. And once the entrepreneur, always, I got into the third startup and partnered with two entrepreneurs from San Francisco Bay Area and was the head of India operations for a startup that got sold to Roche. That's how I came to Roche through the acquisition of a startup. And by this point, GACs had become GCCs. Then we made a proposal to Roche, hey, you acquired a company, how about converting it? And then it became Roche Information Solutions India 2021. And now I'm here. So, not a scripted journey, not a traditional vertical career path journey, job, mechanical, job, startup, services, so-called captive on the headquarters side, then coming here became a head GIC, another startup sold, and GCC. So anything but scripted, but good journey, and I think I've enjoyed every bit of it, all parts of it. Actually.
No, I can see that you've enjoyed, your journey, and you're probably the second leader I'm interviewing who started as a mechanical engineer, but ended up being the top technology leader of the country, same as you. So, you've led GCCs before, Roche also, and now, you head this 100% digital excellence center. Uh, what personal or professional, lessons have stayed with you through your journey? You said that you have three entrepreneurs and sold somewhere. You did well somewhere. The company did well. You didn't do well. So some things that would have stayed with you till now.
Yeah, actually, quite a lot of them. Actually, I'll start with the personal and then come to professional because I've been through a lot of personal churn. When I started in the early stages, a typical super ambitious type A personality who always is a topper in school and college. That was what I was. And I went to all these good colleges, and Indian Institute is a great college also. The engineering college I went to was not bad by any stretch of imagination. And wherever I went, I was one of the top students. So the thing is, at that stage of life, you end up prioritizing IQ enormously. That's all that's important. So physical wellness is important, and the IQ and all that, and you work hard, persevere, which is how you're trained in some of these very good institutes. The whole concept of mental wellness doesn't exist or takes a backseat. Even if you go to any of these big institutes and all that, you're so much in competitive mode because the students next to you are some of the best competitively. The change, one thing that has stayed with me, and that's when I got burnt out because I wasn't focused on that. One thing that is a learning that has stayed with me is MMM, I call it. Mind matters most. You can have all the money, you can have all the success and all the hierarchical positions and all of those things and perks and all that. But if mentally it's not working to your satisfaction and all that, that really then it doesn't have benefit. So one thing that has stayed with me or one thing that has had early influence and along the way I learned is you might as well focus on mental wellness. Doesn't mean you ignore physical wellness, but mental wellness is super critical. The second thing is in the initial stages, you always are going fast. If you go fast, you go alone. You know that Ratan Tata's, Mr. Tata's quote. If you want to go far, you don't go fast. You have to go together. Actually, that all sounds like a nice quote when told, but in the early stages, people don't. Especially when you come from a competitive environment where competition is all about being ahead of the others by definition. You always want to go fast. One thing that has stayed with me is fast is fine, but fast and furious is not fine. You, if you want to go far, you also need people with you. Actually, that's the second thing. And the third, and I'll end the personal part of it is, um, you when you're competing, you are focused on yourself. Other things don't matter. As time has progressed, I've recognized the extreme importance and power of relationships. family and friends and all that. You don't want to come home to empty walls. That's going to take you nowhere.
Mm.
You don't want a situation where all you have is work. You want to have some friends, work or non-related, whom you can go talk, you know. So that whole concept of relationships. Those are three things that have changed. IQ to mental wellness. You still retain the IQ. A recognition that relationships are very, 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 very important. And
Mm.
you want to go far, not just fast. Life is much longer. It's not,
Right.
so career is a marathon, not a sprint. Those are some personal learnings that have stayed with me. Professionally, of course, lots of them in a startup, you're not focused on stakeholder management. Do the best job, meritocracy, do it quick, get it to the market.
Right.
In a bigger organization, including like the one that I'm in right now, it's not just that it's how many different stakeholders are involved. So alignment and stakeholder management starts taking outsized amount of time
Mm.
relative to what would have taken, and that starts becoming very important
Mm.
actually. And in a services or in startups and all that, it is very important how quickly you bring a product. In a bigger organization, it's not how quick, how well
Structure.
developed,
Yeah.
structured, suitable, because risks increase a lot. In a
Mm.
startup, you're meant to take risks. Here, you're meant to mitigate risk.
Right.
So the approach is a little bit different actually. And if you don't get that mindset right,
Mm.
it's always a bit of a complication because it's like a seesaw.
Mm.
Startups are on this side, this side. So it's this delicate balance of seesaw that I'm still trying to learn. By no stretch am I. So those personal and professional learnings are what I've learned along
Mm.
these along with many smaller ones actually.
Yeah. I think these are the softer sides which people ignore, but
Yeah.
are super critical when it comes to long-term, career or wellness and everything. And while you've spoken about it, but I'll stick to it. You are also recognized, on LinkedIn as a, global, kind of influencer, and have active. You're very active in mentorship. So how do those roles help you here in your day job?
Yeah. Actually, they are symbiotic relationships. Of course, being a LinkedIn influencer and being a head of a GCC are not exactly the same, but
Correct.
just share symbiosis. Let me share a few examples
Yep.
actually. When you are on LinkedIn, and let me distinctly separate LinkedIn from the general social media and reels and all
Right.
that. That's not what we're talking about. A more formal and professional platform. A few things are very important. One is you can randomly post a lot.
Mm.
That's fine, but if you want to be an influencer, you first need to know what you stand for.
Mm.
If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for everything.
Mm.
LinkedIn and platforms like these are interested in tell us the area that you are an expert at. The first thing is figuring out what do you stand for. The world of GCCs, by the way, is not very different.
Mm.
You can either be, oh, I can do cost focused also, delivery focused also, innovation. I am everything. Or if everything to everyone, you're nothing to any of those
Mm.
things actually. So first is to understand yourself. What is your core USP and all that? Applies in global influencer as much as you. Second is once you know what are you and what do you stand for, it's important to then ensure that you have a view on topics. A lot of times in order to avoid controversy, don't take a view on anything.
Mm.
If you don't have a view on anything, you're not a thought leader in the first place.
Mm.
So first is what do you stand for? You're an expert in that. What is your, anytime there's two sides to an equation, what is your unique perspective that you're bringing? That's second applies to GCC also. You're not hired in the GCC to be on any side of the, that's not stakeholder management.
Mm.
You have to take a stand on certain topics and all.
Mm.
So once you know what you stand for, you know which side, then is to present those perspectives cogently. LinkedIn is not about writing a 10,000 word article.
Mm.
Concise, precise, to the point, what you present it and present it consistently. The more
Mm.
consistently present, more stickiness is there. Same GCP. You got a message, whether the message is about company, this, whatever, be there, present it so people can understand. Same. And then critically, last point, you are on social media for two things. One is visibility, but more important than presence. Look similar, but they're not the same.
Mm.
Visibility is where you're there all the time. Presence is more dignified version of that. You're absolutely present. You're not present every moment. You're present at the right place, right time, ensuring that the message sticks and all that. Same applies to you.
Mm.
You don't want to be so visible
Mm.
that you lost the presence altogether.
Correct.
You just need to be present enough, etc. What you learn as an influencer actually has a fair bit of correlation. Some of the other aspects of content and all that, I'll leave that out.
Mm.
But I see that what you learn from here has a fair bit of correlation when you run GCC,
Mm.
especially now because they're graduating to innovation engines relative to the cost. I think there's a fair bit of overlap, and one benefits me quite a bit in the other side actually.
Right. Correct. And so you talked about having a balance,
Hmm.
um, and you were quite vocal about it. I've read, read your LinkedIn post and all also, and you said that one needs to have a view. I'm putting all this together, and then I'm putting this question to you: that what, in your view, separates a pure, which we talked about, a cost play center to a innovation center?
Hmm.
And within a global organization,
Hmm.
which benefits. And if I have to ask you the question, like someone somewhere said that, what does the enterprise lose if I shut down today?
Hmm. Very nice.
Yeah. What's your
Very good
view?
point. Very, very great question. I mean, these GCC or GIC or captive, whatever you call
Yeah.
it, they started a significant number of them for cost. That's all. What does India provide? Or cost is a big benefit it
Mm.
provides. Now, a cost organization, any GCC or otherwise, is all about do it at the lowest possible cost. And there's only certain level to which you can't go. You can't go below a certain cost point. I mean, people have to earn money, pay their bills, and all that.
Correct.
Then you start looking at all kinds of other efficiencies and all that. And everything is about efficiency and effectiveness because that's the only way you can get cost benefit beyond a point.
Mm.
So EE, efficiency, effectiveness. This you keep on focusing. Also, the leaders in those organizations they grow because of subject matter expertise. I did the work. I did it so well at such a good price point. I get promoted.
Correct.
I further get promoted. So the head is someone who's a subject matter expert who has answers to every question. After all, they've done it.
Right.
So the head is the leadership is answer the question, do it efficiently, do it effectively, ensure that costs are maintained, and you're going to have a certain number of exits and all that. It probably is even good a little positively a certain exits. Good because I replace them with also cost scheme is different. The leaders are different. They
Mm.
are answerers of questions. They're subject matter experts. They've grown through the ranks. Your vertical structure. You need only certain bit of ecosystem. After all, and cost what you need a certain bit of ecosystem.
Mm.
And then you have an internal organization which is set up for efficiency and effectiveness. The KPIs are all cost. Shifted to innovation.
Mm.
It's everything different from that. And I worked in a cost-based GCC and execution, and the current one is anything but that actually. It turns out in this, let's say we both have to innovate how to do this interview differently. Both of us don't know the answer to the question.
Mm.
We are also figuring out innovation. What kind shall I bring? In innovation, you don't have answers to a lot of questions.
Mm.
You no more can answer everything. You answer what you can. Rest is you have the people around answer questions when you create that environment. So you're more a facilitator as opposed to a person who can answer. Very different than you. You don't grow through the ranks at all. If you grow through the ranks, there's only so much SME available.
Mm.
You probably are a catalyzer, that's all, as opposed to somebody who grows through the ranks. The organization is not just efficiency and effectiveness. The organization is an environment in which people of different strengths come together, work. You have a little bit of disagreement, debate. That's a part and parcel. There's no debate in the cost. Why do you need to debate there? Do it at the lowest cost. You'll have debates, you'll have disagreements, you'll have frazzle egos and all. That's exactly what's expected.
Mm.
And you have expectations that keep changing back and forth in this. That's exactly because innovation doesn't have perfect answer.
Mm.
And then you need a solid ecosystem. You can't do innovation yourself. You need academia, you need trade bodies, you need institutes, you need other GCCs, you need service providers,
Mm.
something that you may not. So if you take a look at these two, every single aspect
Mm.
is different. KPI, leadership, people, metric, ecosystem. And having been on two sides, I can tell you, I did this course and I'm still every single day adapting to this one.
Right.
A lot of learning, a lot of unlearning of how you would do
Mm.
here. So quite a bit of changes that I
Mm.
can see.
Right. So which one's harder, the execution or innovation? And if you have to excel at both, how do you build teams around it?
Which is more difficult. I'll answer that
Yeah.
question. I think it's based on personality. For a personality like me, the cost came a little bit easier
Mm.
because I come from a competitive environment of highly there it's easy to compete, get it done. An innovation organization can't run on competition.
Mm.
If both of us merely compete and say, come on, we both have to innovate, the more you compete, the more you fail because you're putting pressure
Mm.
on your own brain. Innovation comes when you're in a relatively more free space, you have certain head space, you're able to use it, you've got an environment where failure is not rewarded, but certain structured failures, etc. Okay, fine, the company is willing to live with it. that's a different mindset altogether. So for someone with my personality, the innovation type takes a little longer to adapt to, create the environment, do the things, can't answer. It's a little different than this one.
Mm.
And the adaptation curve is maybe a little bit longer. That's a short answer, but that's not the case for everyone.
Mm.
Depends. That's why I said you need to know what you are actually.
Mm.
And your second question was
How do
if
you
you
build
want to be
team?
good
Yeah,
at
yeah.
exactly. I think this is a very complicated question to ask because these are completely different
Different
animals.
things. Yeah.
If you try to bring a culture of an innovative GCC to a cost,
Mm.
that's a guaranteed recipe for destruction because you don't need to innovate, you need to duplicate. A
Mm.
cost organization is repeat,
Mm.
duplicate. An innovation organization is innovate, don't duplicate. The opposite. The leadership is different. So if you want to do, I mean, I don't think in the same organization you can have both. You can have certain sections and all that. The right thing is mindset, your own mindset, and what you think you stand for. There will be certain sections of every innovation organization that are still cost focused, and you got to do it the lowest, etc. You need to then ensure that the right leaders are staffed up there. A big part of playing the GCC head role is not necessarily being yourself the leader, but getting the right people
Mm.
and figuring out when not right what to get, and figuring out if you yourself need to make a change and all that. So you need to get the right leaders for those and mentor those leaders also to pick up those kinds of units.
Mm.
So I think if you have a innovation driven organization which has got certain cost components, you need to have the right kind of leaders in those organizations. And I don't think at the same time the same person can support both. I mean, you have these advisory board roles where you have to advise. I do not think you can do perfect justice to both because the pieces are completely different.
So you said about, you have to do innovation in certain way and all. So do you think perfectionist would be a good choice for a GCC leader, or do you think it will be the other way around?
Yeah, the probably is a disaster for a GCC perfectionist because a perfectionist and an innovator are two different things. A perfectionist is very somebody who wants the work done perfectly. There's a difference between perfection and excellence.
Correct.
Excellence, no problems. In fact, with no excellence, that GCC is going nowhere.
Correct.
Excellence is do your best and constantly keep on taking it to the next level.
Mm.
You did a 100-meter dash, you can do 110 meters, 120 meters. Perfectionist is 100 meters we did right now, right?
Mm.
We got it in 9.5 seconds. That's not what is exciting me. Your leg was not right, this was not right. That same thing led to. So you are now focused so much on the semantics and the other thing that the outcome and output are there at a certain level. You're now tinkering with all of the intermediate things. That's probably suitable for a different kind of organization.
Mm.
It probably was right for some film actors who were perfectionists and all that and who had those kinds of things. What you need for a GCC is excellence. And excellence is a must. No excellence is the dead GCC. At some point, it will go that particular direction. So, from my perspective, vantage point, I think excellence is what I would look at actually as a key attribute, not so much perfection.
So, I'm segueing a little, and you know, it's often said that India has enough talent, enough technical talent we have, but building world-class GCCs often, require more than technical skills, as you were just alluding to. So, what blend of competencies do you think uh, prioritizes, leaders who should prioritize when building teams?
I mean, we have these fancy terms, I-shaped talent
Yeah,
and T-shaped
T-shaped talent.
talent and Y-shaped talent and all that. These terms didn't exist when I was running my first one 15 years ago. Again, I was ahead in all of these
Mm.
organizations, so I had seen it right from that particular vantage point. But they have these characterizations have some benefits too. And I is somebody who's very good in their area. These usually turn out to be perfectionists, absolutely no problem. T is you are very good in one area, but you also have the breadth to see the picture,
Correct.
bigger picture, and then you are able to bring the domain angle in the grand scheme of things. So your expertise aligns to business problem.
Mm.
And the Y is the top leadership related thing. You've got two forks, you are good in the area, but you've got the forks, etc., to factor in the multiple angles. In my view, as GCCs are evolving, you need all three of them, not one or the other. You absolutely need the experts who are so good in their space that they are just the best. You need those. But if all you have is those, you're not able to get the business angle right. So you need the T ones who are then able to work with these also, who have the expertise but hold the business angle. You also need the why because at the absolute top leadership, you need to be able to get it all together. So in my view, for the GCCs of the future, You need all three of them coming together, and these leaders, Y-shaped, who are able to get these T and I to produce the results. As I see it, because future GCCs are not just going to be on cost and all of those kinds of things. I mean, that benefit is long gone, or gradually step by step reducing. Cost cannot be your only value proposition. So to me, these are important. And critically, the ability to mentor and coach and advise. These are all, I'm using the terms quickly, but they have different nuances. I don't want to get into those. I think it's a critical skill for GCC leader at any level. You can be down the ladder and absolute head, that's smart. Ability to coach and mentor, not everyone is coachable and mentorable. There are those people who think, hey, I know everything. Correct. I'm ahead myself. The best thing you do with such people is not coach and mentor. They probably are not ready because they have a view, they know it all. But those that are ready, you work with those people and coach. Ability to know who to coach and mentor first, and then coach and mentor. In my view, these two combinations, I, T, Y, which has got SME plus getting it together with coaching. I think these are critical.
Okay. And how do you foster that mindset here at Roche? With how easy or difficult do you find it with newer generations coming in, generations changing? How how good, bad, ugly is it?
Ugly, I'll keep it out actually. But to your honor, you make a very good point. I mean, with each change of generation,
Yeah,
the expectations are changing. I mean,
correct.
the newest generation is born after 1991
Yeah,
or thereabouts when India liberalized.
mm,
I'm talking specifically India.
correct. Yeah.
The expectations are different. They were born in a different world of abundance and all that. It is the case of understanding the generation and recognizing it for what it is. I mean, this is a different, not difficult generation. It's different. That difference makes it very complicated because if you're using a hammer to screw a, to turn a screw around,
Right.
you will damage the hammer also and the screw also. A
Mm,
little bit like that actually.
correct.
You need to recognize that the hammer is not going to work here. A screwdriver is going to work actually. This in an example sounds very nice. Yeah, it's obvious. If it's a screw, why are you going to use a hammer?
Correct.
In real life, what is a hammer and what is a screw is not very obvious.
Mm,
A comment or a perspective or a view or an idea, is it a screw or is it a bolt or a? It's not easy to decide. So you don't know which tool to use. It's that nuance in being able to know which tool to use and what's this exact. That's a very good leader from a decent leader or from somebody who's an upcoming leader. If that's understood, I think any generation can be worked. You can work with baby boomers or millennials or now Gen Beta, which is just the new one that well, they still have time to get to the workforce. Alpha, I have kids, so I can make out the everything is different.
yeah.
If you're not able to adapt, it's a problem. So to me, how good or bad it is depends on your own adaptability. The better you adapt, very good. You as in the leader. The lesser the ability to adapt, bad. And not at all adapt, then I'll use the word ugly. And you have all versions of all of those coming in.
Yeah. Let's spend some time talking about the GCC space per se. And we have matured. The ecosystem definitely has matured. So, what's the good trend that you have spotted, which you really like about the entire ecosystem, the way it is evolving right now?
The way it is evolving is
Yeah.
what I think. I mean, think about it. 15 years ago, I was also heading a GCC, and then I came to India. Back then, what was the ecosystem? There were hardly any startups. There were, but few startups. Trade bodies were just getting established. If you wanted talent, you had to go to a few institutions that existed. That's all. There were services companies, but services and GCC partnership was not super well established. So you tried to either outsource everything or do everything by yourself, almost boiling the ocean kind of thing. That characterization meant at that time a lot of GCCs struggled, or GICs at that time. They struggled quite a bit. They just did the basics, etc. What I see as evolution now is this whole ecosystem is coming together fairly well. You know that for certain types of innovation, you can go to an Indian Institute of Science or an IIT or another institute. I'm just giving some names, knowing that it's a hybrid thing, right? You also know that talent is not about just one institute. You have a plethora of institutes of different types, and it's not just engineering. You need talent of different types. You also have wonderful institutions, trade bodies, which get various experts together. Let's talk what we are doing right now. This is a part of the ecosystem. At that time, media probably had a focus of different types. Right now, there are these focus, there are these discussions. Somebody can see and learn from these things. This is a way of learning, also different kind of learning, not a classroom learning. The way these are all coming together ensures greater success because you are not going to learn from one place. You have different entities. I'm not even talking about many things like services companies. Everything doesn't have to be done in-house. Everything is not built. Some is built, some is buy, some is with partnership and all that. We have lots of partnership with lots of companies, and we firmly believe they're working symbiotically for both entities. So to me, the way in which this is evolved with different entities coming together and recognizing the role, not cannibalizing each other, not one trying to outwit the other or outcompete the other. This thing is working very well. But if I were to look a little bit more at the future, where I see this further wanting to evolve, a great example I can give is, the way some of the things are happening in China, for example. You could go to there, even with, you just don't have these entities that are co-located. You have a institute here and a services organization here, an innovation body here, an academic institution, all co-located. These are all separate legal entities. You could be forgiven if you believe they're all one company. That's the degree of collaboration with all of them. When you have that degree of collaboration and that level of hyper localization and then that degree of talent and all that, innovation generally tends to move. And of course, the capital, which I think should not be ignoring. So we are in the right direction. Further acceleration, I think, will take us in a complete. So I see it. I see the manner of it all coming together as the right thing to happen at the right time.
And I think that's very important for something which is very close to your heart, which you have spoken to me about earlier also, is about future proofing yourself.
Yeah.
Future proofing the ecosystem. If all those things can be put together, probably we can future proof our ecosystem.
Yeah. Friend GCC is also exactly like you say. I mean, right now, and also it's been the case last year and the year before, we are at the peak of the, or reaching the peak or there or thereabouts actually, the hype curve. At the peak, everything looks nice. It's a little bit like, giving a normal GCC example. The first time you fall in love or whatever be the case, whoever you fall in love with or whatever, you are no more seeing the flaws because your brain is now attuned to only seeing the positive. Everything looks good. Everything is nice. After that, you settle, and now what looked good starts, oh, come on, I didn't, and then suddenly reality starts hitting in and all that. Right now, we are at the peak. So everything looks like, oh, we have these things, we have a lot of sessions, we have meetings, a lot of GCCs, coming. Every day I'm hearing a new GCC and all that. Hey, you're not going to have GCCs come every day 20 years later or whatever be the case. So when you're at the peak, that's when it's very important to recognize what are the potential failure points, not with a negative mindset. What can make this hype, not and just a hype and not translate to reality? This is where the future proofing comes in. And a lot of those aspects are there in that. I won't go into all of those, but exactly like you say, if the only thing you're still doing is only cost, there's no other value proposition. Cost is an important one. I'm not denying that. That's not going to sustain for a very long time, actually, because there's lower you go, you can't go below that particular. Second, if the only thing you're doing is I will do everything with no ecosystem, that's not going to work for a very long time. You will never be able to do everything at some point. And really mature organizations are those that can leverage all of this. If all you're trying to do is by yourself, AI has got added to the mix, making it complicated animal. If that's an animal that is not yet figured out fully, it's time to take the bull by the horns. Not go so much into it. I hear this AI native, and to a point that business forget it. And let's make it AI. Well, AI is not going to solve all this. AI is a tool for business, not the other way around. So knowing the right balance and all of those, that's very important. Recognition that with geopolitical changes and all that, the near shoring is starting to take a different shape. So you've got to have the right value propositions to ensure that you stay relevant and all that. I think all of these regulatory challenges and all that. So knowing all of these, putting it together, and like you have these dashboards where you need to turn various bolts and nuts together, and knowing which bolt and which, or which one exactly, which knob to turn on, which knob to turn off. It doesn't appear very apparent to somebody working inside the GCC who's doing programming, wondering, hey, what is there in the first place? But whether it's a tax or regulatory or an ecosystem, all of these are different knobs, and the 15, 16 knobs on my desk at any given point, which I, along with a few people from side functions, I think getting them together and It's not a specific knob. The right mix of that knob, I think, sets the GCC up for success and
Yeah.
future proofs that actually as I see.
Yeah. So correct. I mean, one has to be cautious when you're at the top because there after the peak there is a trough. So we all know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Raja, it's always a pleasure to speak to you and get get insights from you because you're really passionate about the GCC space, and as you said that we all need to be focused to make this ecosystem future proof. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Saurabh, for having me and good talking to you.
Thank you.